Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel. In today's video, I am sharing the December My Monthly Hero Arts main kit and add-ons. This month's kit is packed with stamps and dies that really help create a beautiful look of neighborhoods and cityscapes. The sentiments and images in this month's main kit and add-ons will help you create cards for welcoming somebody to the neighborhood, congratulating someone on a new home, missing friends and family, excitement about a new adventure for someone, and much, much more. I wanted to be sure I highlighted every single thing that Hero Arts sent me this month. So I have a lot to share. There are a ton of cards that I've created, and I want to make sure you see all the products and what they can do. So let's jump right into the card making, and I'll share these new stamps and dies along the way. So let's start with the main kit. The main kit comes with a 6x8 stamp set and matching dies. There are all types of cityscapes and ways to create skylines in this kit, and I'm going to use the buildings. Now, I created a whole other card where I completely messed it up in many different ways, and you know I love to share those mistakes with you all, but this video got really, really long. So I'm gonna show the second version where I got things at least not completely smeared and messed up. I did stamp with VersaFine ink on gold metallic cardstock and then covered it with clear embossing powder to keep the ink from smearing once it dries. Now for the grass, I'm going to use that kind of rolling hill stamp, and I used some Hero Arts Bold Green Apple ink. And now I'm using a combination of several different inks from Hero Arts, their Indigo and one of their Hero Hues Reactive inks, Splash, and I'm rubbing the ink from the ink pad directly onto the cardstock. And this is creating kind of like a, almost like impending storm for the sky, but just also like maybe nightfall, that kind of thing. There's this cute little couple on a picnic bench, so I stamped them directly onto the grass. Now you could die cut them out if you wanted to, so there's lots of different ways to put this card together. I did cut out the buildings and the grass, and now I am stamping the sentiment right on the sky background that I created. Biggest thing here, when you have that much ink on a cardstock, really make sure it's dry before you try to do heat embossing on it. That was one issue I had. There were just so many issues with the first version of this card, but I'm really happy with the second version. So I'm going to use some satin pearl embossing powder for the clouds and the moon. That's from Hero Arts as well, which is different than the white. So you can see that it's just kind of like almost a haze pearl on the background. It just gives you a different look and makes that sentiment really, really stand out. So I am going to glue down with some tape runner the buildings. I really like the way the gold metallic is the windows, so it looks like the windows have lights on inside of them. And then I am going to put the little grass with the couple on the end. There was a little bit of white on the end, so I'm just taking the ink pad and rubbing it against that edge of the cardstock, and then I'll just do it on the other side so that it matches and it's consistent. You can see my fingers. I just got ink all over myself with this card, but I really like the way this turned out, and those buildings are so pretty and so much fun. Also from the main kit, we have this die, which is a cover die, and this is so unique and so much fun. I'm going to cut it out of the black cardstock that comes with the kit. Now you can see that my magnetic piece there is very dirty. It's covered with a bunch of embossing powder and glitter and stuff. So there's some on the black cardstock that wouldn't happen if you had a nice clean magnetic sheet, which I don't. So I'm going to have to either clean it or change it out. And for the background, I am using 3 Distress Oxide colors. The main kit actually comes with 3 cubes that are similar to this color pattern. I was just drawn to this color combo without even knowing that those were the cubes that came with the kit. I felt like this was like a sunset look as well. So whether you're doing sunrise or sunset, these are really fun images to play around with. So I'm just going to use some liquid glue to adhere that black cardstock die cut down, and then I stamped and heat embossed with white embossing powder the sentiment that says, "Through it all, I'm here for you," which is so sweet. And I'm going to use my Karen Deco Brush metallic markers to add a little bit of color to the bulbs that are strung from each apartment or landing, a little outlook there. So I just have all those different colors of bulbs and they're metallic. You could cover them up with some clear glossy accents or something like that as well. They're in this main kit, and with this die and stamps, there are tiny little stamps that you can cut out as well. I wanted to make sure that the outside of the die cut didn't look white. It looked like it blended right into the background. So I just blended little circles of colors of the inks that I used to ink blend the background, and then I'm going to stamp those little images with black ink and then die cut them out and then pop them up on the background. So you can see there's lots of choices to play around with here and to add a different effect, whether you use different colors or different images. This next card, we're going to use the Geometric City Bold Prints background stamp. So I'm going to peel off that back protective piece of paper, and this is a cling rubber mounted stamp. So using my original Misty, I'm going to take out the foam pad, which is my mouse pad here. If you have a plain black pad, that's what you would take out as well. I am going to align it in the top left hand corner, and then I'm going to place my paper in the top left hand corner, and I'm going to use some anti-static powder tool, and then I'm going to use some embossing ink and then some white embossing powder, and we're going to do an ink blend resist here. So I'm just pouring like a ton of white embossing powder on it, and then I will pour the rest back into my container here, and you can see there when I tilted it, you can see the pattern. Even though it's white on white, once it melts, you won't be able to see it really great, but you'll see it as we ink blend on top. So I am doing a circular blend starting in the center with Distress Oxide Salvaged Patina. I used some Blueprint Sketch, some Prize Ribbon, Wilted Violet, Villainous Potion, and then some chipped sapphire on the end. So I went in and did the basic pattern, and then of course I went back over everything because I didn't want to see any white except for the lines of the stamp. So I did do this just a couple of times to make sure I was blending out those edges and there were no harsh lines in the circles that I was creating of the different colors. And I absolutely love these colors together. I may have shared before that I'm not a huge purple fan, but Wilted Violet and Villainous Potion with these blues just is hypnotizing to me. I absolutely love it. So I like having that salvage patina at the center as kind of a spotlight in the center. So you can see this is a 6x6 stamp, and on the edges I had little mess ups or a little extra powder or whatever. That's okay because I'm going to cut this down to an A2 piece of cardstock. For the sentiment, I'm going to blend the same colors all together in kind of a strip area, and then I'm really going to heat set that. I really don't want any ink to be wet at all. Otherwise, your embossing powder is going to stick to the entire area that is inked. So I'm using a stamp from one of the other stamp sets. You'll see more of it later in the video that says "To New Beginnings," and just so many sweet and heartfelt sentiments in this kit that made me really happy and were fun to use. So I popped this up and had trimmed it down with that Tim Holtz mini trimmer, and I just loved making this card. I had so much fun with it. The Wherever You Go stamps and frame cuts are really fun as well. There are some tall buildings, and then there are some smaller structures and trees and grass as well. So like I said before, you have neighborhoods, you have cityscapes, you have all kinds of things. For this building set, I am going to use Copic markers, but I'm not going to do anything too crazy, not lots of blending and shading. I am using a B000 to color in the windows just so that they look kind of clear or bluish, like just a tint of color, not really too dark. And then I'm going to color the buildings all in grays. The sun is going to get that nice pop of yellow, and then you'll see the rest of the buildings we're going to do a little more fun. So these city buildings are going to just stay kind of gray and just add a little bit of shading at different areas on the levels and then also at the bottom of the buildings. For the background for this card, I am going to ink blend two different colors of the Hero Hues reactive inks. I have Splash for the sky and then Key Lime Fizz for the grass. Now, the thing I love about the Hero Hues reactive inks, they are reactive with water. They're nice to blend, but also they do come in cubes as well as full-size inked pads. So that's really, really nice. Now, for the smaller little buildings and the trees, I popped them up in front of the larger buildings, and I stamped wishing we lived closer on the sky background there. So it just looks like the very colorful stuff is up front, and then those gray buildings are towards the back. Again, just a very simple card, but just such a nice message to send to friends or family. The warm welcome stamps and frame cuts are other buildings. There's lots of houses and buildings and, like I said, neighborhoods and cityscapes. These are so much fun. They remind me of the buildings in San Francisco. So I decided to stamp some of the smaller ones that are the full colored in images of houses and buildings with the different Hero Hues reactive ink cubes. And then the larger buildings that are outline stamps where you color them in, I stamped those in black ink that is Copic friendly or alcohol marker friendly. This time I'm going to use the Artex markers. So I've used these before in the past in several videos. You know that I love them because they are so juicy and you don't need to do tons of blending to color them in. So basically I'm using just 2 colors for these, and I'm going to use one lighter color and then one darker color for several accents on these buildings. And as you can tell, I am working towards a rainbow here, of course. It's been a while since I did a real rainbow, so I am having so much fun just adding these really unique colors now in San Francisco. Some of these buildings do have unique colors like pinks. So I thought they'd be fun to do a rainbow card with all of both the little stamped images with the full image and then the colored in ones as well. So I'm stamping Welcome to the Neighborhood. I'm using a slimline card size of cardstock, and then I'm popping up each of the buildings on top. So there's a little bit of dimension there. And I love the way this looks, but I felt like it needed something else. So I decided to use a Posca paint pen to add little dots and details to each of the buildings. At first I was only going to do it to the full image stamps, and then I decided it looks so cute that I decided to add them to all the buildings as well. Okay, the next is called City Window Fancy Die. I'm going to cut it out of some gray cardstock and then back it with some yellow cardstock so that that round circle behind it looks like the moon. And you could have a moon, you could have a sun, really however you want it. I'm going to back that gray cardstock with some acetate, a nice acetate sheet from Judikins. And then I am going to treat the top of the cardstock with some anti-static powder and stamp Wish You Were Here from the main kit stamp set and heat emboss that with white embossing powder. And then I'm going to do a very, very basic shaker where I just cut strips of foam adhesive and attach them around the image that is cut out. So I don't want them covering up the moon or any of the buildings. And then I'm going to pour some gold stars behind that, remove the backings to those foam pieces, and then straight lay the yellow cardstock behind it. And this is all going to go onto a card base, so you won't see any of that stuff that you saw back there, but just a very simple shaker. And I really like the design of that die cut. This is another fun one too. This one's called Open Windows. You can see there's lots of little dies that are attached inside this window. Since they're so small, I keep them attached because the window cuts out the pane as well. You can see there's some shutters there, and this is a flower box that's included. I thought it would be fun for these dies, instead of cutting them out of lots of different colors of pattern paper, is to use a couple of different Copic markers for each of them and just color them in. So I cut them out of Nina Solar White cardstock, and now I'm just using 2 different colors of Copic inks on each, just so that I can have a little bit of blending going on, nothing too crazy, and just adding a little bit of darker color to the flower center. Here for this little bird, you can use the edge of your marker to color up those white lines as well. Okay, now I'm going to use that bold indigo ink on some blue cardstock to stamp the sentiment greetings. You'll see more of that stamp set later. You couldn't really see it in the camera, but there's embossed hinges on those shutters. So I thought I would color those in with gold using the Caron Deco Brush metallic markers. Since that's still wet, I don't want to flip it over, so I'm just going to use some liquid adhesive on the back of this, and then I just decided since I had it out, I might as well use it to adhere down all these little itty bitty bits as well. So I'm tucking the flower pot and the pie behind the flower box so it looks like they're sitting on the windowsill, not inside the flower box necessarily. Adding some flowers to the pot, a little bit of Nouveau Crystal glaze to the steam. This is why I like to keep out A2 pieces of colorful cardstock, because if I die cut from them, I still keep it out on my desk. This way I can use those pieces as mats. So it doesn't matter that those things are cut out from the center, because I'm going to put this all on a card base anyway. So just a really sweet card. It says greetings. You could have lots of different messages on there. Now for the Neighborhood Houses fancy dies. First, I'm going to start by stamping the sentiment. So I'm using another stamp set to stamp sending you a warm welcome, and this time I cut the houses out of different colors of cardstock, and again I'm doing that rainbow, but instead of a slimline card we're going to do an A2 card. So you can see that all the little details of the house are die cut. So there's lots of little details like the roof and the windows and the little doors as well. There's a couple of trees too. There's even a little bird. So I did notice that the doors can actually open. So I'm going to fold them back so it looks like they're all wide open. I just thought that was just such a cute touch to these dies that you can actually open all of those doors. And it looks really cute on the card to have them open instead of glued shut. So the last thing I did was I used that tiny little bird die, is so little, to cut out slightly darker colors of cardstock than each of the trees and adhered those down with a tiny dot of liquid glue, and sending you a warm welcome. Again, just having your neighbors have a card welcoming them when they move into the neighborhood. Next up is the Signpost Stamp and Cut, and this is such a unique and fun idea. I absolutely love this. So these are the dies. You can see that you get the signpost, and then you get two flags that can hang down. There's the little kind of rivets that hold the flag to the signpost, and those little dies I'm going to keep attached. I'm going to stamp congrats and the little house, and then on your new home on a different piece of cardstock, and then I'm going to use the little signs to cut those out. So I'm just going to hold those in place with some tape and run them through my die cut machine. Now, since I have this signpost attached to those little rivets that you can use to attach the flags, I'm just going to put a little piece of metallic cardstock behind it, hold it in place with some tape, and run it through my die cut machine. I'm going to do that twice so that I can get two of them in gold, and then I'm going to put a teeny tiny little bit of glue on the black signpost, pick up the tiny little gold pieces with an embellishment tool, and lay them right on top of the glue. So that's one way to easily deal with those itty bitty teeny tiny little die cuts. Grab one of those embellishment tools and just adhere them down. Then I'm going to use some liquid glue to adhere the whole signpost down to some white cardstock, which is matted on some gold metallic cardstock. I decided to add a little bit of gold trim to the little signs themselves using those Caron brush markers, the Deco Brush metallic markers, and then I'm going to pop up the signs or the flags that are hanging from the signpost on some foam squares, just because it gives a little bit of dimension. This is a super simple card, so I did want to add just a little something to have them kind of pop off the background there. Love this. So much fun. And there's so many different sentiments in the set that you could use on these flags. Okay, this signpost is a wood block stamp. So it's that nice red rubber stamp. And I hadn't used one in a long time, so I was a little stressed about getting the stamp image right, but wait until you see how beautifully it stamps. I'm using watercolor paper. I'm going to use the smooth side of the watercolor paper, and I'm using watercolor safe ink. Just flip that block over where I want it and then press down, and I just was making sure that every little part of that wood block got some pressure from my hand, but check that out. That red rubber stamp just the impression is so beautiful. Okay, now I get to use my clear stamp, so it's a little bit easier with the mini Misty. I can line up a sentiment in each of those signs, and then I have a black heart in the center. And I'm going to put 2 more hearts on that center flag, and now I'm going to use some of the reactive ink cubes on a glass mat with a little bit of water added to them, and then I'm going to add them to the background of this card, and I am spritzing before I add them and after, because I want lots and lots of movement to this color combination here. So I have the pink, orange, and yellow, just for something totally different, because we'd been doing a lot of the purples and blues, and this is kind of like a tie-dye, almost like watercolor background. Just again, a little bit of splatter of pink, because I love the pink so much, and such an easy card. So much fun to create. And again, all of those signs could be different sentiments, things that you even already have in your stash. And I just cut it down and matted it on some white cardstock. Okay, for the tri-fold edge city fancy die, I am going to cut each die out of the Hero Arts black cardstock. So I hold it in place at the bottom of the cardstock there, and then cut it out so that there's not a ton of space underneath each die cut. Again, I am going to use some Wilted Violet, some Blueprint Sketch, and then some Villainous Potion, and a little bit of Chipped Sapphire at the very top there. This is like a very more nighttime sky or stormy nighttime sky. So each of these can layer on top of each other. And I wanted a little bit of color to shine through, but not too much, because you want each of them to kind of go on top of the other without seeing a lot of the bottom of the cardstock that you're working on top of. Now, when you just look straight down like this in the camera, it just looks like nothing, like you can't really see, but wait until I hold it up for you and you see all the details that pop off from having foam tape, which I used black foam squares to make each layer different from the one underneath it. Now I'm going to use a little bit of anti-static powder tool, made sure that background was nice and heat set and dry, and I'm using some silver embossing powder this time. I think it goes really well with this background. It says, good luck on your new adventure. So just again, lots of really sweet, heartfelt sentiments with different types of themes of cards that I haven't really seen in a while. And I'm going to adhere that down to some black cardstock just so that it all kind of goes together a little bit better there. And I'm going to use that Posca pen once again to add some stars into the background of that night sky. And this was such an easy card to create. Just have fun with the ink blending and then die cut and layer away. Super, super simple, but so unique and so much fun. I really love the style and design of these new supplies from Hero Arts and the versatility of them. You can create so many different themed cards with them. But of course, I'd love to hear what your favorites are. Let me know in the comments below. If you're a card maker who likes to see new products before you decide what to buy, definitely subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell, because I love sharing them with you so that you can see them in action before you purchase. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. I'd love to hear what your favorites are. Sure. Decide what to buy. What to buy? If you're a new card maker, that's not what I was gonna say. Why is everything so wordy today? Zip it.